You're listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. Each week, your host, Polly Requa, interviews veterinarians and individuals in the pet industry from across the nation answering pet questions. Bark and Wag podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. That's BARKNWAG.com. Please remember to subscribe to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. Bark and Wag is dedicated to protecting our dogs through advocacy, education, and supporting like-minded dog lovers by selling custom pet products. Bark and Wag is excited to announce our new partnership with a Colorado hemp farm to produce a line of CBD products for your pets. Bark and Wag has CBD pet tincture available in 300, 750, 1200, and 2400 milligrams. Bark and Wag CBD is pet safe, no THC, it's made in the USA, and is CO2 extracted. Please check out Bark and Wag's website, barkandwag.com. That is BARK, to see our line of CBD and awesome merchandise. We love pooch ideas for podcasts and merchandise, so anytime send an email to Polly at barkandwag.com.
Welcome to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. I'm your host, Polly Requa. Today we're talking to Kersti Moss, certified dog trainer at Dog Training Camp USA. Thanks for coming back, Kersti.
Hey, Polly. It's great to be back on Bark and Wag.
Okay, so big question. How do you get your dog to stay?
Oh, good question. So you're getting your dog to stay. The first thing you want to do is make sure you've got a good foundation where they're paying attention to you. So if your dog knows how to sit and you're working on commands like that or down, that's great. But if you don't have any progress on commands, stay is going to be really hard. So stay is kind of a little bit more advanced, but just make sure that you've worked on a sit, and that's a good start. So the first thing I teach people when we're working on stay is that you can't expect your dog to stay from a large distance away if they can't stay from right in front of you. So what you do is start with a sit. I start with a sit, and I work on this on leash so that we are, I've got some control on the dog and they're not able to run away. Start with that sit, and then I pivot my body in front of them. So if I was having my dog sit, I'm standing beside them, I'm going to then turn my body in front of them so that we're facing each other. And that is the beginning of stay. So just pivot in front, and as long as your dog stays sitting, that's good. So wait a couple seconds. Good boy, good girl. Give them some praise and then try again. So what we do with that is pivot in front of them and take one step back. So when you take that step back, you're just asking your dog to stay in that spot. They just need to keep their little bottom on the ground in that sit. Good boy. And then you give them some praise. So this is a little bit hard to explain without seeing the body language of it, and let me know if I need to.
Yeah, no, I get it. I can visualize it. But so when you're saying stay though, when you move away from the dog, you put your hand by their face with, flat hand and say stay?
Yep. So what I do as a trainer is I start without language and I'm just working on the body language. So I'll do a stop sign hand, like what you're saying, a flat palm. I call it a stop sign. And I just do once. And you can say stay, but you don't want to keep repeating it. You just kind of want it to be fluid. So when you're doing it to begin with, it's just that one step away, stay. And you're only expecting your dog to do it for a couple of seconds. So don't expect like a 30-second stay or a minute long. That's too much if they're just learning it. So one step away, stay, wait a couple seconds, and then go back to them and praise them. Once they're good at that, then you can take 2 steps back, 3 steps back, and you've got them on that leash. Now, once you've started to progress, so say you're at 3 steps away and your dog gets up before you ask them to, you just want to be matter of fact, go right back to them and put them back in a sit and have them stay for a few short seconds and then praise them. When they're little puppies, or in the beginning, I use treats, but I want to wean away quickly so that your dog isn't focusing on that treat, because a lot of times they become overly excited or you become reliant on always needing a treat. So I use a lot of praise, affection, give them some loving, good boy, good girl, and keep it calm, because this is something calm that you're teaching them. Stay, back away a couple of feet,
Okay.
and then go back to them and praise them after the fact. And I think trainers teach that different ways, but that's how I've been doing it for years, and it works really well. It's very neutral. It just takes a little bit of patience and consistency.
And so when you're beginning this process of stay, how often should you do it? Should you do it like 3 times a day? I know it's like 5 minutes, but
yeah, you could do
like
it
before they have dinner.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. So you could do it a couple times a day, just a really small increment. So you don't want to burn your dog out on it, but maybe like do it when you go for a walk. You could do it around meal times, because those are natural times where you would be working with your dog. And actually, you could even do it for their food. So that's another way that I teach stay, is I have a dog sit for their dinner or for their breakfast. They sit. After a couple of seconds, you can put their bowl down and then release them to eat. So that's teaching them a little bit of self-control around mealtime, but it's also reinforcing that stay that you've been working on when they're on leash. So maybe 3 times a day, but even once a day is good, because your dog is going to get it. You just want to keep it in a short little increment, so it's not like you're getting burnt out type of thing, because your dog will start to ignore you if you just, say you're doing it for 10 minutes, they're going to get really tired of it. And that's where owners start to get frustrated, because the dog isn't listening anymore and you want them to keep doing it. So short and sweet and fun is the idea.
Okay. Easier said than done.
Yes. The best thing to do is when you're on a walk, because your dog is already on a leash, you're already going out to work with your dog. So that way you're not making it separate from your daily routine. Try to think of ways that you can incorporate it into something that you're already doing. And then that makes it more fun and natural all around.
Okay. Well, thank you for the tips, and hopefully this will help the listeners.
Yeah, I always love their questions.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, www.barkandwag.com, to your friends and other pet owners. Have a pressing question for a veterinarian? Ask your question at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. This has been a KFR production. Join us next time for another edition of Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk.